Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast, and let's get right into it because we have, whether you like it or not, whether you're a fan or not, whether you like the alternate basketball courts, the new colors, whether you care for the NBA Cup, it's upon us. And if you don't like it, well, you still have regular NBA games. The games are still happening. The games still count on your record. So you can ignore all of the festivities and just call it another game. But regardless, the first matchup of the night, the Miami Heat against the Detroit Pistons. Now, the odds here are very even, which is a little mysterious because you'd have to give the Miami Heat the advantage. The problem is, with Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler, there's sort of been a method to beating them. The Timberwolves kind of showed how to do that. Now, miraculously, at the end of the game, the Timberwolves blew the game on an incredible play call from Eric Spoelstra, where they were lined up at half court. Almost everyone lined up on the wrong side of half court, and through running around a little bit, they got a clear lane to a layup to take the lead right there at the end, and the Miami Heat ended up beating the Timberwolves in their last one. But why do I say the Timberwolves showed you how to win? Because the Timberwolves kept it a low-scoring game. They showed that when Miami plays without Jimmy Butler, their strategy is just going to be for Hero to shoot a million shots. He gets the ball, he just shoots it. He's not looking to pass. He's not looking to do anything. Whereas when he was playing in the playoffs without Jimmy Butler, he was a little bit more open to passing. It seems now that he's just got the total green light and he's going to go for 40 every game. So Tyler Hero, certainly that's his prerogative right now. And when you have two good defenders like McDaniels and who is their other guy? It's not it's the other lanky defender from Minnesota who kind of reminds me a little bit of SGA in terms of build. But the guy who I'm thinking of, and it'll come to me in a second, the guy who I'm thinking of is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So when you have guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jaden McDaniels, you can take the guards out of the game. And then they still had Dante DiVincenzo to play defense as well. So what they did was they kept it a low-scoring game because they knew who's going to be trying to score. It's going to be the guards. Bam Adebayo hasn't done too much this season, and he may be an overrated player in general compared to where some people think he's at. Offensively, he's always had not the greatest offensive game. He struggles to hit even foul line jumpers at times. So that's the method, is for the Pistons to play really good defense on the guards. Specifically, just know that every time Hero touches the ball, he's going to be looking to chuck it. That's how you got to play them. So I would say if the Pistons come out with the right game plan, they can give the Heat problems. But ultimately, I would never bet with the Pistons. They're far too inconsistent to really be anyone that you would like to bet on. Then we have the Hawks against the Celtics. And the Hawks are incredible, massive underdogs. The Celtics are like minus 1,000, minus 1,400 favorites. I have to check the line and see what they have it at currently, but this is probably the widest spread of the season, I would have to guess. Or certainly, if there was another one that was more wider gap than this, then there couldn't have been too many like that. But the Hawks right now are plus 700. The Celtics are minus 1,100 on what I'm looking at right now. So needless to say, the Atlanta Hawks aren't exactly expected to get the victory playing without Trae Young against the defending champion Boston Celtics. I know that Jason Tatum got nicked up, but Jaylen Brown will be back. And it seems like if the Hawks are playing without Trae, well, Vegas doesn't have much confidence in them, and neither do I. So look for the Celtics to win this NBA Cup group stage game against the Atlanta Hawks. Then you have the Hornets against the Magic. And what's interesting about this one is that Orlando is a minus 320 favorite at home. Now, how can Orlando be a minus 320 favorite over anyone? They've lost almost every game they played without Banchero. What did they lose? 5 in a row? Before they finally got a victory? And they're not exactly beating great teams in the process. So I would say that you have to think that Charlotte is very, very live. And I would suggest throwing a few dollars on this one straight up, just taking the Charlotte Hornets to win the game over the Orlando Magic. It's certainly in their wheelhouse. At the very least, Charlotte's been playing close ball games. Sure, you would have liked to see them beat Philly, playing without everyone except for Paul George and going behind the play of a rookie to get that game into overtime. And then ultimately, you lost that game, Charlotte. You lost that game with LaMelo Ball doing. He sent the game to overtime, which was pretty cool. But then he ended up doing a foul in overtime, and then the refs reversed the call back and said no, he didn't foul, even though it clearly was a foul. Another bungling job by the refs. But regardless, you would have liked to see Charlotte pull out that game. It would give you a little bit more confidence in betting on them tonight. But nonetheless, Orlando is, you would have to say there's at least a 75% chance Orlando's going to lose every game without Paolo. So you can't say it's a bad bet to take the plus money and go on Charlotte. That's what I would advise. Beyond that, we've got the fourth game. We've got the Knicks against the Sixers. Now, Joel Embiid is slated to come back. So you know this is going to be a good game because these two teams really dislike each other. Joel Embiid is known to be a very dirty player, specifically against the Knicks. There's a lot of footage of him doing horrible things where he probably should get ejected, and he manages to avoid it, even in a playoff setting. Now, Tyrese Maxey's not going to play, but it looks like McCain is slated to pick up those minutes, and Paul George will be playing alongside Joel Embiid for the first time in their careers. But then again, there's a continuity problem there. Joel Embiid is just getting inserted into the lineup. Now, you have to imagine that he'll have his game, at least to the effect that he had it in the playoffs last year when he was pretty bruised up, do what he typically does on offense. And the Knicks are without any of their centers who they played with last season in the playoffs, right? They're without Ochoa and they're without Hartenstein, but they have Karl Anthony Towns. But as we've seen from Towns, the defensive end isn't exactly his forte. I would still lean towards the Knicks, but I could see why you wouldn't want to take them. Ultimately, it should be a good game. I would lean towards the Knicks with a gun to my head, but this isn't really one I'm looking to bet on. Then you have the Raptors going against the Bucks. Now, the Bucks have proven that they can lose any game. They can lose absolutely any game at any time. You'd be foolish to go on them heavy, but hey, in this one, it's the Raptors. The Raptors don't have much. Half their team is injured. All their good players are out. So Milwaukee, the minus 360 favorite. This isn't a favorite that I would really try to load up on too much because Milwaukee can lose any night. They're really not, they've not shown anything that gives you any confidence in them, but it's against the Raptors. Ultimately, I would pick Milwaukee to win, but this is another one that I would probably veer away from. Then you've got the Phoenix Suns playing without Kevin Durant in this one. They lost their first game without Durant, and now they're going to be coming back for a second one. This time it's against a much easier opponent, the Utah Jazz. Why would you pick the Jazz in this one? The Suns you're actually getting pretty good odds. The Suns are only a minus 210 on the road against the Jazz. I guess that impact of not having Kevin Durant is really playing a big part in the Suns only being narrow favorites over Utah. Utah, the comeback at plus 176. I would say it's not good enough odds in Utah's direction to take them. You'd have to bet on the Suns, maybe use them to win in a parlay or something like that. The Suns are clearly the pick here. I don't see how you can take Utah. Then you have what might be the game of the night. Actually, I would say it clearly is. You have the Knicks Sixers, but there are injuries in that game, and Joel Embiid, who knows how much he'll play in that first game. This is really the game of the night. It's the Dallas Mavericks against the Golden State Warriors. Because the Warriors are playing the best basketball in the Western Conference right now. And the Mavericks have played pretty good basketball too, with the exception of Luka just hasn't been quite as effective as he was last year in the second half of the year after the trade deadline and in the playoffs all the way up until the finals. Now, Kyrie has been playing out of his mind. I think he was like 8 for 8 at one point last night, hitting like 5 3-point. He was absolutely ridiculous. He scored over 40. I think it was 43 in the game. So this is going to be a really good one. The Mavericks can win any ball game, and the Warriors right now are playing better basketball than we've seen them play maybe since they won the title a couple of years ago. So this is really the interesting one. Now, on the odds, you have the Warriors at home, and that's why they're a slight favorite. But you can certainly use Dallas if you want to. I would not be shy to use Dallas. Dallas is super live to win this ball game. Ultimately, it's probably another one that I would stay away from. I'll tell you a couple of picks that I had near the end of this, but I would probably stay away from it. If you ask me, I would not be shy to take Dallas to win this one. But let's see. Golden State's defense has just been so phenomenal, and their effort is unbelievable. Let's see what happens tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas got the win here. Then you have the lock of the night, Minnesota against Portland. Minnesota should certainly trounce them. They need a victory coming off of the loss to Miami, a heartbreaking one. They're going to go for it tonight. They're going to beat Portland coming off of a horrible loss. So the minus 375 favorites, Minnesota, they should take it. Now, of the games that happened last night, you had the Nets narrowly beating the Pelicans. The Pelicans were leading for a lot of that one. The Nets came up late and ended up taking it. Doesn't really matter. Neither team is that great. And it wasn't a great game, although the score was close. Then you have the Rockets vanquishing the Wizards, the worst team in the NBA. You have the Spurs beating the Kings. And this is the one that I want to talk about. The Spurs beat the Kings. The Kings only scored 96 points. Okay, they're without Malik Monk. But they gave up 116. And they do that to an offense that's not very good. That's not very polished. The Spurs are not an offense that's being run, with the exception of maybe Chris Paul, but it's being run by a whole cast of unproven characters. Castle and who's running that team? I mean, Wemby is still only in his second season. It's not like he organizes the offense in a great way. It's being run by Champagny and Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell and Mamukelashvili and Zach Collins and Blake West. I mean, this is a team of unproven guys. You shouldn't be giving them free runs to the basket. They shouldn't be able to move the ball on you and get open dunks. They shouldn't be feeling confident against you. And the Kings just don't play defense. So your offense can be great. You can have Fox put up 24 and DeRozan put up 21 and Sabonis put up 23, and you still haven't cracked 100 because you're giving up easy points going the other way, and that's just taking the steam out of you. You're losing to a team that you should never, ever lose to if you would just play defense. Meanwhile, Mike Brown was this defensive guru on Golden State, and they're saying, oh man, our defense hasn't been the same till this year from what it was when Mike Brown was there. And meanwhile, Mike Brown can't teach his players a semblance of defense. You can't continually do this thing where you go down in the first 3 quarters of the game, and then with 5 minutes left, you start scoring a barrage of points and coming back and win the game. That doesn't always work. It's a bad plan. What's a good plan is if you could figure out how to play defense. Their defense is beyond embarrassing. And if I was a Sacramento Kings fan, I would just be banging my head against the wall with this team. How have you had that great season where you went to Game 7 against Golden State in the playoffs, and you've never worked on the defense? Not every series, not every game is just going to be a track meet running up and down and scoring. You need to learn how to play defense. And they still haven't learned how to do it. Then we had the Thunder beating the Clippers. It was close, but the Thunder got the win as we thought that they would. The Cavaliers got the win over the Bulls. It was a close one, but they got the win like we thought that they would. The only game that I was surprised about last night, I picked all the other ways. I picked the Nets to beat the Pelicans, picked the Rockets to beat the Wizards, picked the Thunder to beat the Clippers, picked the Cavs to beat the Bulls and stay undefeated. It was only that Spurs beating the Kings that I didn't see coming, and the Kings didn't see it coming, but if they don't play defense, you know what? Then we're not going to be able to rely on the Kings in any way. Even when they play the bottom barrel teams in the NBA, like the Spurs, it doesn't get much worse than the Spurs team. Sure, Wembanyama, but Wembanyama alone, one good player alone, and it's not just that he's a good player, he's a streaky good player because he takes a ton of threes, doesn't always hit them, and just the fact that he can get an offensive rebound isn't the biggest deal in the world when he doesn't always play inside. So he's not even always there for the offensive rebound. They don't get him easy buckets that often. So can you say one good second-year player is enough that you should lose the game? No, not at all. That's an embarrassing loss for the Kings. And when you look at their record, you see many games already. They're 6-5, and you see several games that they could have won that they lost. This team could be 10-1. This team could be 9-2, 8-3, and they're not because they squander games that they can win. Well, look at the Kings' record. Look at the teams that the Kings have played. They started off the season losing to the Clippers. Oh, I'm sorry. They started off the season losing to the Timberwolves. Okay. Then they lost to the Lakers. They beat the Trailblazers. They beat the Jazz. They beat the Hawks. They lost to the Raptors. They beat the Heat. They beat the Raptors. They lost to the Clippers. They beat the Suns in overtime, a great victory. They lost to the Spurs. So, in there, you see games. You see games that they could have won, losing to the Raptors, losing to the Spurs, losing to the Clippers. This is a team that could have had a really top record. Even if you won 2 of those games against the Raptors or the Spurs, right now you'd be sitting at a nice 8-3 instead of a 6-5 and being stuck there in the middle of all those Western Conference teams. Man, you could have been right near the top. You could have been ahead of the Nuggets. But you don't play any defense, so you're going to lose games that you have the talent to win. Now, I said that I would share a couple of bets on things that make sense to me. The first one we already discussed. Just take the Charlotte Hornets tonight. You're going to get the plus money. Are they definitely going to win? No. They're not a lock. But the Hornets over the Magic, getting that sweet plus money, I would say you gotta take the shot there and earn a few bucks on the Charlotte Hornets against the Magic. Then, if you want to go parlay, I don't see Klay Thompson having a big game tonight. He's been trending downward. He had a great first few games of the season, and then he's been trending downward. I would take the under. It's at 15.5 points for Klay Thompson. I would take the under. And then let's take Steph on 4+ made threes, 25 points. Let's take Luka and Kyrie to each put up 20 and a made 3 from Luka. That'll give you a nice payout right there. Take a nice big parlay, but some of those pieces are easy. Kyrie and Luka to score 20, Luka to make 1 3, and Steph to score 25. And if he scores 25, it'll probably be with 4 made threes right there. So if you get Steph having a good night, you'll probably be good to go there. The piece that could hit or miss is the Klay Thompson under 15.5 points. Klay is capable of, on the right night, scoring more than 16 or more, but I think that it's not going to happen tonight. It'll happen at some point. He's going to break out at some point with a couple of good games. For the most part, I don't see Klay as being a great move for Dallas this year. I think Golden State did the better move by letting him walk than the Dallas did by paying him to come there, because I think Klay Thompson's best basketball is way, way behind him. And when I'm watching Dallas play in these close games and I see Klay get the ball in his hands, I would think that if I was the opposing fan base, I'd be real happy because I'm much happier if the ball's in Klay Thompson's hands than Luka or Kyrie. I think that that's the best case scenario for the other team is for Klay to have the ball and just keep chucking up threes that he's hitting less and less frequently. And then let's look at the Knicks. You can make a nice easy parlay on the Knicks, get some good payouts there. Karl Anthony Towns, take the over on 1.5 threes. So all he's got to do is hit 2 threes, and he takes several per game. Take the New York Knicks to win, and OG over 4.5 rebounds. That'll be a plus 333 right there. That's a pretty nice, easy parlay. OG over on rebounds, Knicks money line. Karl Anthony Towns over 1.5 threes made. And thank me when you get a nice, sweet victory. As always, we're your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.